This happened a few years ago in Madison, Wisconsin. It was a final day of 8th grade at East Brook Middle School, one of those big public schools with over 1,200 students. You can probably imagine the energy that day. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, yearbooks in hand, saying goodbyes like we were graduating college instead of just switching buildings. To avoid chaos, the teachers came up with a system. We handed in our yearbooks to the homeroom teachers, and they passed them from class to class so students had signed them without everyone running around like maniacs. But obviously, that opened the door for problems. It meant anyone could write in your yearbook, even if they didn't know you. When I got mine back that afternoon, I flipped through the pages eagerly, smiling at all the dumb inside jokes and heart emojis from my friends. But something stopped me cold. There was a note written under a photo of a kid I swear I had never seen before in my life. His name was Elliot Markham Jr. The message he wrote was weirdly simple. Hags, I'll see you real soon. I stared at it for a while. My first reaction was confusion. I had never talked to this guy. I didn't recognize the name, the face, nothing. Maybe it was some dumb prank. Or maybe he mixed me up with someone else. Either way, it didn't seem like something I needed to lose sleep over. That night, I had a small sleepover in my basement with my 3 closest friends, Marcus, Evan, and Leo. We were celebrating summer the way middle school boys do. Junk food, video games, and 0 parental supervision. My parents' bedroom was on the top floor, and the basement was half underground. So we didn't have to keep quiet. Around 2 a.m., we were goofing off on the old elliptical machine in the corner when we heard it. A loud, deliberate knock on the storm door. We froze. It wasn't some casual tap. It was hard, repeated, rhythmic. None of us moved at first. I could feel the tension thicken the air. Who the hell knocks on a basement storm door in the middle of the night? It had to be someone who either knew we were down there or didn't want my parents to hear. Leo, being the loudmouth, called out, "Who is it?" I wanted to smack him. That basically told whoever it was, "Hey, yeah, we're kids alone down here." There was a pause, and then a voice. "Go around back. Doors open." The voice sounded weirdly cheerful, like someone trying to sound friendly, maybe too friendly, but it was definitely a teenager. He didn't sound like he was faking the pitch. It was natural, too natural. I didn't want to open the door, but my friends were more curious than scared. They pushed me to go look. I caved. We crept upstairs, avoiding the creaky spots on the steps, and peeked through the side window of the back door. There he was, standing under the porch light, hands in his pockets. Smiling like this was all totally normal was Elliot Markham Jr. My stomach dropped. I stopped Leo just as he reached for the door. "I know that guy," I said, voice trembling. "He signed my yearbook. I've never even spoken to him." That finally sobered everyone up. We stood there, unsure what to do. Elliot saw us through the window and started waving us over to the kitchen. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't even want to look at him. But I opened the kitchen window just a crack. "What do you want?" I asked. "I know who you are." His smile widened. "Cool. You got my message," he said. Then he added, "I always thought we could have been friends. I watched you sometimes." Chills ran through me. I forced a smile and nodded, just to keep things calm. But then I asked him the one question that had been burning in my mind. "How did you know where I live?" He didn't answer. He just stood there smiling. And then Evan, standing behind me, blurted out, "Dude, you're a straight-up creep. Get lost." The change in Elliot's expression was instant. His head tilted slowly, like a confused dog. Then it twisted into something I'll never forget, pure, burning hate. He screamed at us, things he shouldn't know. How Evan was adopted. How Marcus's mom drank. How I had broken up with Mia. And why. None of that was public. He shouldn't have known any of it. He lunged at the window, trying to force it open. I slammed it shut and locked it. He started pounding the glass, growling like an animal, eyes wild and desperate. The noise must have echoed through the entire house, because seconds later, my parents came storming downstairs. Elliot ran, fast, into the woods behind our backyard. My dad sprinted out after him in nothing but socks and a t-shirt, but he came back 10 minutes later, shaking his head. "He vanished," he said. Strangely, my parents didn't call the police that night. They figured it was some troubled kid and said they'd talk to the school in the morning. But when they did, the principal told them something that still gives me chills. Elliot Markham Jr. had been expelled over a month before school ended. His parents had pulled him out after some incident. No one went into details. But the school yearbooks, they were printed weeks earlier. That's how his photo and name were still in them. That meant he broke into the school on the last day, just to leave me that message. Worse, the address? The school had no idea how he got it. Our house was unlisted. My parents never shared it publicly. There's no record of how he tracked me down. The school tried contacting his family, but there was no answer, no working number, no home visit. It was like they just vanished. We never saw Elliot again. No news stories, no updates, nothing. We don't talk about it anymore, but I still live in that house. And sometimes, late at night, I catch myself checking that same storm door, just in case someone knocks again. My friend Dylan has always been unpredictable. And by that, I mean he's borderline unhinged. He's one of those guys who thinks being loud, aggressive, and reckless is a personality trait. He brags about fights he's gotten into like war stories, and lives in gym like it's his actual address. There are at least 5 stories I could tell about him, but the one that stayed with me, the one that still makes me paranoid walking alone at night, happened just a few weeks ago. It was the last day of senior year at Harrison Ridge University, May 2023. The official graduation ceremony was still a few days away, but our classes were done, and tradition dictated that seniors go all out that night. There's a massive bronze statue in the center campus, right under the old bell tower. That's where every senior gathers for the unofficial last hurrah by 10 p.m. There were well over 1,000 students there, music blaring, drinks in hand, people dancing in the fountains. It was bittersweet and chaotic in the best way. There were 6 of us walking together that night. Me, B, C, L, J, and of course, Dylan. I'm using initials because I don't think the others would be thrilled about their names being out there, especially after what happened. We lived off campus, about a 15-minute walk through Lakefield's downtown. The area is not exactly safe, lots of sketchy activity and a big homeless population. You learn pretty quickly to keep your head down after dark. We just passed a closed gas station when it happened. Some homeless guy came stumbling out from behind a dumpster, yelling nonsense like he'd been waiting for us. He stood directly in the crosswalk like a troll guarding a bridge, shouting at us like we owed him something. The rest of us instinctively curved around him in a wide semicircle, trying not to provoke anything, except Dylan. He squared up and shouted, "Get the hell out of the street, man. You're not scaring anyone." The guy stepped forward like he was ready to fight. I stepped in, trying to de-escalate, physically pulling Dylan back. Big mistake. Dylan shoved my arm away and charged at the guy, yelling like an absolute maniac. The homeless man flinched, then turned and sprinted in the opposite direction. Dylan laughed like it was a joke. Honestly, we all laughed. It was ridiculous. The whole thing felt like a prank, like watching someone scare off a raccoon. But we stopped laughing about 5 minutes later. That's when we noticed the guy was following us. Not close, maybe a block behind, but every time we turned a corner, he was still there, still staring, still muttering. And when he saw us looking back, he yelled, "You made a big mistake tonight. I'll find you again. I'll call the spirits." What the hell did that even mean? We yelled back at him, tried to scare him off, but that only seemed to wind him up more. We were all drunk and hyped up from the night, not in the right mindset to realize how bad this could get, about 2 blocks from our house. I told everyone we shouldn't leave this guy home. Everyone agreed. But Dylan? Of course not. He took off again toward the man like some messed up game of tag, chasing him down the street until the guy disappeared into a parking lot. We figured it was over. We walked home, laughing it off, joking that Dylan had scared the guy into another state. Back at the house, we kept the party going. And no, I won't go into details. It got pretty wild. At some point after midnight, I ordered food. I don't even remember what time it was when I stumbled out onto the porch to grab my DoorDash. That's when I saw it. The side gate to our backyard, the one that we always kept tied shut with a piece of twine, was wide open. That gate never opened on its own. The twine had to be untied. Or cut. My brain, fog as it was, made the connection instantly. That guy, the homeless man, he'd followed us home after all. But instead of waking my friends or calling anyone, my dumb, drunk self decided to investigate. I placed the food on the porch, walked around the side of the house, and turned the corner. Before I could even see anything, a rope slipped around my neck. I couldn't scream. I clawed at it, but it was pulled tight. I felt the rough fibers bite into my skin as whoever was yanked back with everything they had. I stumbled, gasping, trying to wedge my fingers under the rope. The pressure was unbearable. My vision started going black at the edges. I thought that was it. I thought I was going to die in my own backyard. With one final push, I threw my legs backward and felt us both crash to the ground. The grip loosened just enough for me to gasp for air. The man was on top of me, slashing at my face with cracked nails and grabbing at my throat again. I panicked, punching wildly until I managed to shove him off. He scrambled up and bolted, disappearing into the alley behind the house. I lay there, bleeding and dazed. My friends found me a few minutes later when I didn't come back with the food. I ended up in the ER that night. The cuts on my face weren't deep, but I needed stitches and a round of shots to guard against infection. God knows what that guy had. The police came, took a statement, but didn't seem too hopeful. I was moving out the following week anyway. The worst part? My graduation photos. I had a stitched-up cheek and a black eye in every one of them. Dylan felt awful. He actually stayed with me the whole time at the hospital. But I never blamed him, not entirely. I just hope he learned something that night. You never know who you're messing with, especially people who have nothing to lose. Back in 7th grade, there was this kid in my homeroom named Eli Mercer. To say he was different would be putting it lightly. He never talked to anyone unless absolutely necessary, and despite a lot of kids trying to include him in group stuff, he'd always quietly back away. He was like a shadow in the classroom, always there, never part of anything. Eli always wore the same outfit. Loose gray cargo pants and a faded black hoodie that looked 2 sizes too big. Rain or shine, hot or cold, he never changed. When he did speak, maybe to read something aloud or answer a question, his voice was unexpectedly deep and slow, like it didn't match his size or age. A lot of kids made fun of him for it, but Eli never reacted, not once. There was a weird rumor going around after my friend Ryan claimed he saw Eli slicing worms apart with a pencil during recess behind the baseball bleachers. I didn't see it myself, but Eli did get detention that day, and honestly, it didn't surprise me. Every recess, without fail, he'd stand alone by the chain-link fence that bordered the woods behind our school. While other kids ran around playing tag or tossing footballs, Eli just stood there, sometimes staring into the trees, other times whispering, like he was talking to someone on the other side. Some kids swore they saw a man standing deep in the trees one day, watching Eli, whispering back. But I never saw that, and I've never been big on passing around things I can't verify. Still, all of it just added to the strange vibe surrounding him. Anyway, the day this happened was the last day of school. We went to a pretty large middle school in Greenville, Oregon, which meant multiple classrooms ran at the same time for each grade. It had become this unofficial tradition on the last day. Kids would sneak into random classes just to confuse the teachers and have fun. Honestly, the teachers knew about it, but played along for the sake of fun. I wasn't really into that stuff. I'd been raised to follow the rules, so while my friends went off to mess around in other rooms, I stayed put. That day, in our social studies class, the only person I somewhat recognized sitting with me was Eli, and he was off. He kept tapping his foot like crazy, nonstop, not nervous tapping, almost like he was keeping a beat. His eyes kept flicking around the room like he was counting people or waiting for something to happen. He didn't look at me, but I had this weird feeling like he was watching all of us at once. Something else was strange, too. The number of kids in the room. Now, last day chaos aside, I swear there were at least 7 or 8 kids I had never seen in my entire life. Some looked older. Some looked wrong, like they didn't belong here. But I brushed it off. Then Mrs. Galvez, our teacher, told us to form small groups for a light reflection activity. Most kids just took the opportunity to chat and joke around. A few minutes into the activity, she picked up the classroom phone and turned her back to us. She was whispering, which was already weird. Teachers don't usually hide their calls. About a minute later, another teacher, Mr. Livingston, showed up. They stepped just outside the room and started whispering in hushed voices. It only lasted a few seconds, but I caught a glimpse of Mrs. Galvez's face, pale tight, like she was trying not to freak out. I felt it in my stomach. Something was wrong. When they came back inside, they didn't say anything to the class. They just went up to a few specific students, oddly, a few of those unfamiliar kids, and spoke to them quietly. One by one, those kids got up and followed the teachers into the hallway. Nobody said a word. It was like no one else even noticed. Except me. I sat there frozen. A minute later, Mrs. Galvez came back in alone and calmly returned to her desk like nothing had happened. That's when the fire alarm went off. We all jumped up, but Mrs. Galvez barely flinched. It was like she expected it. She told us to line up and head out to the backfield, and we joined the rest of the students out on the grass. While standing there with my homeroom, I turned and glanced back at the building. I don't even know why. Maybe instinct. In the second floor window, just for a moment, I saw movement, a figure. It looked like someone stepped away from the window right as I looked. It could have been a teacher or something. But deep down, it didn't feel right. The school was supposed to be empty. Before the alarm even stopped ringing, sirens echoed in the distance. A minute later, 6 police cruisers came screaming into the parking lot. Officers jumped out and ran straight into the building, weapons drawn. We all stood in stunned silence. No one explained anything. After about 15 minutes, a staff member came around and said school was being let out early. No buses were running. We had to call our parents to pick us up. It was chaos. My parents didn't know much, but that night, my mom sat me down and told me what Lucy'd been told by the school. Apparently, a group of older kids, not from our school, had somehow slipped into the building, and they weren't just random troublemakers. They had brought things in their backpacks, matches, lighter fluid, strange tools. The plan, supposedly, was to set fires in the science wing and gym, maybe worse. The creepiest part? The school believed Eli had let them in, through a gap in the chain-link fence by the woods during recess. I never saw Eli again after that day. His locker was cleared out. He was never mentioned by staff or students again, just erased. Even now, years later, I still don't fully understand what happened. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see that flicker of movement in the window, and the kid who never belonged. I went to a public high school in Ash Valley, Montana, a small place with 1 diner, 1 gas station, and a high school that hadn't been updated since the late 70s. The paint was peeling, the heating barely worked, and the intercom crackled so bad you could never understand a word the principal said. But it wasn't the rundown condition of the building that creeped us out. It was room 210. Nobody ever used that classroom. The door was always locked. The windows were blacked out. Teachers never mentioned it. If you asked about it, they'd just wave you off like you were wasting time. But rumors flew like wildfire. Everyone had their theory. Some said it used to be a storage room for outdated textbooks. Others claimed it was a detention room where a student once had a mental breakdown and attacked a teacher. The wildest version? That it had once been a counseling office where a guidance counselor mysteriously vanished, just never came home. But no one could confirm anything. My junior year, I had a substitute teacher for English, Mr. Lambert, a young guy, probably in his late 20s. He was cool and casual, the kind of sub who let you sit wherever gave easy assignments, and didn't really care if you had your AirPods in. On his third day with us, we had a fire drill. Standard stuff. We all filed outside and waited around while the staff counted heads. But Mr. Lambert looked confused. He was standing next to our regular English teacher, who had come out of another class for the drill. They were arguing quietly. Mr. Lambert kept pointing toward the building. I remember hearing him say, "No, I swear I had a girl still in there. I took attendance. She was here." He sounded genuinely shaken. A few minutes later, he ran back inside. Even though staff tried to stop him, after the drill ended, we went back to class. Mr. Lambert wasn't there. Instead, the assistant principal came in, told us he had to leave early due to a family matter, and that was that. But I couldn't forget the look on his face. So that night, I messaged Carter, my best friend, who was in the same class. He said he'd noticed something weird too. During the drill, he saw Mr. Lambert looking up at the second floor, toward room 210. I don't know what got into us, but that weekend, we decided to sneak into the school. Ash Valley High wasn't exactly high security. Carter's older brother used to work custodial shifts, and he still had a copy of the backdoor key. Dumb, I know, but we were 17 and full of late-night adrenaline. We snuck in Saturday night around 11 p.m., flashlights in hand, avoiding the cameras we knew didn't work half the time anyway. Room 210 was at the end of the second floor east wing. It looked like every other door, except for one thing. The doorknob was ice cold. I don't mean slightly chilly. I mean freezing, like grabbing metal in the middle of January. We both paused. Then Carter reached into his backpack and pulled out a flathead screwdriver. He brought it in case we needed to pry something. He jammed it under the lock and twisted. Click. The door creaked open about 2 inches, and then stopped like something on the other side was pushing back. We both leaned in and heard it. A voice. Very faint, like someone whispering into a pillow. I couldn't tell what it was saying, but the tone chilled me. Then, out of nowhere, Carter froze. His flashlight beam trembled. "Dude," he whispered, "do you see that?" I looked past him. Inside room 210 was a desk, one single desk, placed perfectly in the center of the room. And sitting at that desk, barely visible through the crack, was a girl. Long black hair, pale skin. She sat completely still, like a mannequin. She didn't look up. I whispered Carter's name, but he was frozen wide-eyed, backing away slowly. That's when the girl, still facing the front, slowly lifted her hand and pointed directly at us. We ran. I mean full sprint, crashing down the stairs, nearly breaking the back door, trying to get out. We didn't stop until we were in Carter's car, gasping and drenched in sweat. We never told anyone. But that Monday morning, I walked into school, still shaken, in homeroom. The teacher handed out a list, scheduled changes due to staffing issues. I glanced down and felt my stomach drop. Room 210, reactivated for student counseling sessions. Assigned staff, Mr. Lambert. He'd come back? I asked around. No one had seen him. No one could confirm anything. And when I walked by room 210 during lunch, it was closed again, locked, lights off. The final punch? A week later, the morning announcements included a brief message. Please keep our staff and student body in your thoughts today as we remember Caitlin Dyer, a former student whose life was tragically lost in 2016. A moment of silence, please. I had never heard that name before. I searched the school website and found nothing. But a few days later, an old student blog linked to a newspaper clipping. Local 10th grader, Caitlin Dyer, went missing after school. Last seen walking down the east wing of Ash Valley High. Never found. Presumed dead. The article was dated exactly 7 years before. To the day,